just seeing, what we could have done better, what I could have done better individually. But that's just pretty much it, just a lot of reflecting but knowing now that, you can't really dwell on the past. You find out what you did wrong, and then you just kind of move on to week 3.
How big of a blow is to lose JaeSean, and how confident are you in the guys behind him?
It's a huge blow, and, just kind of seeing how hard he's worked, and to see how he goes out like that, and, what a hamstring injury is kind of devastating. But next man's got to step up, and, I know Isaiah and some of those guys behind him, they're ready.
What could you said, things you learned. What could you have done differently, and how do you intend to apply that later moving forward?
Just a couple of passes that I wish that I could have had back. I know on the second play that I talked about, I knew right after the play that I missed probably a touchdown or a big gain to Buck, and then a drag route that I missed to Kendrick, and with just some passes I wish I could have had back. And just as a whole, I felt like it that led to receivers dropping stuff, and then some miscommunication between the backs, and just kind of went all downhill.
How frustrating is it when you have some overthrows and then there's some that are dropped? So it's just kind of one of those deals you just can't seem to find your rhythm no matter what.
Yeah, and I feel like sometimes that kind of happens on the road, and that's something that we've let happen on the road. And so I feel like with this type of schedule, and we're going to have road games, that's going to be something that we have to fix for sure.
Do you ever watch the tape, wish I would have run it or scrambled at this particular play, or do you feel like you're just always supposed to be looking for the pass?
Yeah, I feel like that's always something that's really big, and just seeing if I should have run or passed. But a lot of them this week, I felt like I was standing in the pocket, and I look back at the tape, and a lot of them I don't think I should have ran at all.
Coach says that knowing when to scramble is more like a feel. Do you think that you've got that innate quality to know when's the best time to hold on to the ball, when's the best time to take off?
Yeah, and a lot of he talks about you read coverage and feel pressure. So something that I thought I've done really well, and worked on this past off season, and spring ball, fall camp is feeling pressure and knowing when to get out the pocket. And I know one that this past weekend I should have thrown away. That I took a sack on. We had a couple other sacks, but one of those I knew I should have threw the ball away. So that was definitely my fault.
Do you think that maybe now that since Corbin's out and you've got rotation of tailbacks, do you think maybe you'll contribute more in the running game? Or do you think you'll feel the need to contribute more?
I always think game plan is based on what the defense does. Sometimes I might need to run more than others, and sometimes we might have to depend on the backs to do more, jet sweeps, just something like that. I feel like it just, I can't really tell you. It just depends on who we're playing that week.
What kind of guy is Capote on the team? A guy who has kind of had to wait his turn but might have it now, and being one of the veteran guys in that group left over?
One thing about him, I've always knew he was a really talented guy, and just kind of since his freshman year, I think his freshman year he had a touchdown in week 3, and he's always a guy who's been pretty consistent, but always waited his turn. So I know he's a talented guy, and we're going to depend on him. With JaeSean going down.
Is he kind of a veteran voice in that locker room in that group that is a lot of young guys?
Yeah, I think so, and we have a lot of young guys, and true freshmen, and so I definitely think he's going to be somebody who's going to step up vocally and on the field.
Speaking of stepping up, when it's not going good like that, Kellen, on offense, what's the lesson learned there, and how do you kind of maybe right the ship within the game versus having to go back and fix it next week? How could you have done better in that situation? I know you went down and scored late, but earlier, fix the problem earlier in the game like that.
Sometimes, mentally you think that certain things are fixed, and Coach always says just go back to your fundamentals, and that's something he was saying on the sideline. And we had our drives, but then I had a key turnover in the red zone where I should have thrown hot to the opposite side, and so just key things like that. I got to do a better job on focusing.
That last offensive drive, were you guys trying to speed things up a little bit, or?
Yeah, no matter if the game's still going, we're always going to be trying to score. So, I feel like at that point, I was always alert of the clock, and we were, but no matter what, we were trying to put the ball in the end zone.
What do you think kind of slowed things down a little bit? Was it Jimbo kind of pointed to some miscommunication maybe?
Yeah, just my communication to the receivers, and sometimes, when we're in that 2-minute type of offense, you can't really do that. So just knowing Jimbo and, just starting to understand him a little bit more. Even though I've been in the offense for over a year now, it's still stuff that I need to learn, and that was one of the things.
How pleased have you been with the progress of Spiller?
I'm really excited, and he kind of came in as a guy who, a lot of people didn't really know exactly if he knew his role or, if he was going to be a scout team type person. But he's just constantly just been quiet, put in his work, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do.
The performance you take the bulk of the carries?
I do, and he's put on weight, and I think he's over 220 right now. So I know he's a freshman, but just the body size, and I feel like he could take a pounding, but still give us a lot of great carries.
And he can block
There was a series
too.
early in the third quarter, I think, where you were almost like hopping off the field. How close? Cramps, I take it.
Yeah.
How close were you to coming out at that point?
I didn't ever think I was going to come out. I knew, a lot of times it's hard to play with cramps, but something that it was just like on and off during the game, and a lot of my muscles started getting tight where it was hard to walk, and a lot of times you could tell it was kind of hard to run, up and down the field, but it was just something that I had to play with, and knowing going into the game I got to do a better job of finding out if it's hydration or eating or something in that nature.
What do you think it was?
I don't know. I usually talk to our dietitian, but just that's one of the things we got to find out. So it doesn't happen again.
I know that Ryan McCollum was the spring offensive MVP, but you got Prater there in front of you. What did Prater do in the fall to kind of earn that spot away?
Prater's always been one of those leaders, and a guy who started even before I got here. So he definitely has a lot of respect of the team, and just one of those guys who's consistently working hard and just kind of waited for his turn.
Do you feel like he's gotten in the rhythm of things so far?
Yeah, I think he's done a really good job.
Do you feel like there's pressure on you when your defense performed as well as they did Saturday against a pretty good team? Do you feel like that's pressure on the offense to go out there and score?
I don't think so, and I think going into the game, we were really confident as an offense, and we felt really prepared. And you look back at the film, and we had our opportunities, and we look back, and we had pretty much almost every play open. Just something, the one person messing up can kind of affect the whole entire play. So just kind of looking back and see what we could fix is kind of one of those big things. But we knew going into the game that our defense was going to do a good job. So I feel like this week, and going forward, offense, we need to pick it up.
Are you still as confident as an offense?
I'm sorry?
Are you still as confident as an offense?
Yeah, and with me, I always feel like I'm going to be super confident, and it just goes back in the practice and the game plan. And Coach Fisher always expresses confidence in everybody, and is always going to do his best, game planning. So I don't think the confidence will ever go away.
The performance you had, does that remind you of any game last year? Was this a completely different game? Do you feel that any game you played before?
It was a completely different game, and I didn't think my second half was as bad, but except for a couple of plays and then the red zone turnover. But just kind of the way that I started, I knew it wasn't good enough, and so obviously you don't get things back, but that's one of the things I need to get off to a better start.
How important is this Lamar game, knowing that SEC play is coming up after that? So how important is it that you guys play well against Lamar?
We need to play well because it's the next game, and that's the only thing we need to focus on. And Coach always talks about faceless opponent. It doesn't really matter who you're playing, and that's kind of how the way we look at it. We're going to go in this week, find out what we did wrong last week, correct it, and come out with another great week.
I know you talk a lot about rhythm on offense, but Kellen, how much would it help to hit a chunk play here and there? I mean, you guys are having to do 14, 15 play drives. That's hard to sustain. What about a big play down the field? I mean, we don't have to see much of that, especially last week.
Yeah, those always help as an offense, but a lot of being realistic, against good teams, that isn't always going to happen, and so that's why it's always important to be consistent. And a lot of times, 14 play drives, if you think about one person messing up, it could affect the whole drive. So we just got to be more disciplined and more consistent for longer periods of time.
Kellen, I read an interview with the U of H quarterback, Derek King, who was insulted that people thought he would be a running quarterback. and said no, he was a quarterback. So do you look at it that way, that we're asking you about running? Do you think your quarterback job is just to throw and maybe scramble away if necessary, or do you think your running ability is a great part of your game?
I think my running ability is a really good part of my game, and being able to extend plays, and a lot of times it's used for just being elusive in the pocket, but still keeping your eyes down the field. So obviously in this offense, my job is to just make plays and move the chains, but a lot of my time is spent in the pocket and reading coverage, but I'm definitely not afraid to tuck it and run.
Expect the receivers to bounce back, Kellen.
I know they're going to have a big week this week, and it's going to start in practice. I know Coach Craig is going to be hard on them, but they're strong mentally, and just like me, I didn't have a good week, a good game, so I got to bounce back too.
Last question.
Coach said you hold yourself accountable really hard. Do you feel like you're ever too critical on yourself, or do you feel like you have the right amount of self-criticism when you have mistakes like that?
At times I feel like I could be too hard on myself, and sometimes people who are close to me tell me that, but I feel like that's just the nature of being a quarterback and just who I am as a person.
Is it easy for you to move on to the next step there, like move on to this next game?
I think so, and just me being heavily mentally on a game like this, and just knowing that you can't really dwell on this past game. You find out what you can learn, and then you got to move on.
All right, thank y'all.
Thanks, Kellen.